That's right. Yeah. So Circa was kind of building their bridge, right, that
That's
allows
so
you
cool.
to, have USDC that sort of minted and burned across these different chains, and so you can send it one another. And then the question that we're helping them answer is that how do you use that and how do you build applications around that, right? So by composing it with Axelar general message passing layer, and so yeah, you'll be able to have kind of a chain agnostic representation of USDC, right? And a chain agnostic representation to interact with all of these different, ecosystem applications with your USDC in one click.
Dude, are we gonna have chain agnostic stable coins?
We're going to have stable chain
Oh,
agnostic
what?
stablecoins.
That's mind blowing right now. I can't even like fathom how that would work, how that would be represented in a wallet, but that's next level. This episode of Untold Stories is sponsored by BingX and AngelBlock. You'll hear more about them later on in this episode. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. What is up, everyone? What a crazy past week or two it's been, huh? I am your host, Charlie Shrem, and you are diving deep with me, our guests, to truly understand how this movement came to be. We're really able to understand things and to see the products and what's going on under the hood of our industry and tell some good stories really before other people talk about it. I saw yesterday someone said, "Oh, did you see about this guy talked about this thing or whatever?" And someone said, "Yeah, they talked about it on Charlie Shrem show like 6 months ago." Whatever we're talking about now is what your friends in crypto land are going to be talking about in the future. This is groundbreaking stuff. This is, if you think about someone going through a forest, chopping, trailblazing, like creating the trail, these are the trailblazers. And we're having a lot of fun doing it. We have some great guests. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the crypto world between FTX and inflation and Binance and all the bankruptcies and these centralized platforms, CeFi as we call them. And these are the one thing that they have in common is these are all the dominoes that are falling are places where you physically keep your money, whether it's your crypto or your dollars or your currencies, in order to uh, use certain like products and applications that the crypto world provides. So whether it's like trading coins and tokens or being involved in a metaverse, unfortunately, a lot of us are not keeping the coins on our own devices and our own private keys. We're keeping them at these centralized services who end up doing a lot of crazy things with them. So first, my heart goes out to a lot of folks that have money in these places. I hope things work out. Uh, Going back 2014 when Mount Gox collapsed and I was stuck in that bankruptcy, still am. It's still going on. Um, it sucks, but we all will become stronger out of it. My guest today, Sergey, thank you. Sergey Gorbunov, thank you so much for coming on Untold Stories today. Before I introduce you, how's it been? How you feeling the past few days? I mean, you run one of the top decentralized financial protocols. Uh, what are people calling you up and asking you like if you're affected by this?
Yeah, no, so first of all, yeah, great to be here. And yeah, kind of a feel, really bad for a lot of the people that, are affected in the last few days. Fortunately, we're not affected at Axelar directly, right? We have kind of managed our burn rate and everything quite well. So, but, I think some of our partners might be, right? And so I think what we're trying to do is just kind of see if there's anything we can do for them. There's a lot of builders around the network itself, so we're trying to kind of check in on them, see how they're doing. I think this is kind of an opportunity for the strong teams to continue building, and of course, but we have to weather the storm first, and we're kind of right in the middle of it right now.
We need to come together. This is what could happen and what's been happening and what if we take back historical context, there could be more infighting, tribalism, people saying my blockchain is better than yours and start comparing. We need to not do that. We need to work together. We need to figure out where we went wrong, what happened, accountability, things like that. But at the same time, we need to continue having the conversations that you and I are having today. And we need to bring to light the actual decentralized protocols and a decentralized application. I use this word so many freaking times. Someone told me that they're creating a drinking game as they listen to the show, every time I say decentralized, they take a shot. But I really want to get down into this because this is why Satoshi created Bitcoin and why we have crypto today is to further these protocols where no one can reverse our money. No one can freeze it. There's no centralized party that if they go down, all of our money goes down because that's what continues to happen. Um, I want to give a little bit of, I feel like I've been talking a little bit too much. I want to give a little introduction about you. You are an assistant professor at the University of Waterloo. You're one of the co-founders of Axelar. Super, super cool project. Um, you received a PhD from MIT, worked with Microsoft and did a lot of things in traditional tech world, as you would call it, but then you developed Axelar, which actually continues on the theme that I was talking to my guest yesterday about. And that will probably be my first question to you is we were talking about how these dApps, or here I go again, decentralized applications have to not exist on one blockchain. Rather, they have to exist outside and be able to work with all different blockchains and networks and things like that. Uh, is that what Axelar is?
Yep. So on the high level, right, we're working towards a what I call as a kind of chain agnostic future, right? From a user perspective, um, the experience of interacting with all of these different ecosystems today is just like completely, horrible, right? Like you have to have multiple wallets, pay gas on multiple fees. You have to know how to use, all of these different chains, and I think to continue growing the space, to continue showing the value of it to regular users, we have to do better. User experiences, we have to do better developer experiences, right? And so, Axelar, what we're trying to do is build a network that kind of glues a lot of these different ecosystems together and infrastructure around it. So, yeah, that's the high level.
It's really cool if someone goes to axelarscan.io, right? They see
Hmm.
this beautiful, like it's a gorgeous, like real time graphic you have here. It shows Axelar like right in the center, and you have how many different 27 different chains kind of orbiting you, and
Right.
there's just transactions going in and out, in and out. What you have top one like from Polygon to Ethereum to I mean, it looks like almost every EVM chain, Cosmos, every IBC. I mean, what's going on here? How is this possible that I mean, the belief was that decentralized applications exist on top of or inside of a blockchain network.
Hmm. Yeah. So, kind of at the very core of it, right? When we started Axelar, we had what I call as one of the design principles as being a plug and play connectivity, right? So meaning that every new ecosystem that we can plug into the Axelar protocol should be automatically interoperable with everything else that has been previously connected, right? So it has huge compounding and networking effects, and that's a core objective that we work hard towards, and I think we achieved it. For a lot of ecosystems today, there's still some work to be done there, but that's why you're seeing this kind of growing graph of connectivity, right? So every chain that's added through the stack allows the protocol to send messages to every other chain that's been previously interconnected through it. And what that means is that your applications all of a sudden, right, can talk to the users and talk to the applications on other chains, right? So they're not no longer living in an isolated world. They can actually use all this sort of transportation web that we're creating underneath it to talk with other ecosystems, which I think is incredibly um, incredibly exciting. And I think one thing I would just kind of mention there before going too deep. I think we talk about CeFi, right, and a lot of it, but the reality is that without these types of connectivity and without this type of interoperability, you couldn't build products like FTX, right, like Binance in a decentralized way previously, right? And I think there's still a lot of infrastructure gaps that have been missing and are still missing that would enable to build those experiences. And to me, that's kind of fundamental that we'll continue working on those.
Like what? I mean, like we could zoom out a little bit here.
Hmm.
Um, our industry is growing, market cap, applications and services. I think one day we won't even look about the size of our industry based on like the total amount of altcoins in existence because a lot of companies don't have coins anymore. It's not really sometimes something that you really need to do. especially when if you're like in the NFT space and things like that, or something that you're doing. But I mean, it's just a world that I never thought would exist, and I'm trying to understand now if we'll ever have a need for will we continue on this path like that we had the last 3, 4 years where you had new chains like 4, 5, 6, $7 billion plus chains launching per year. Will we continue to see that? Will it be the end of the launching of the new blockchain? And when we see more protocols like yours just work with the ones that exist, why would someone, I mean, unless you're like a trucking logistics company and you want your own permissioned blockchain for your own like where one coin represents one truck or something like that. Why would someone launch a new blockchain today?
Yeah, so I think fundamentally, it all comes down to the questions of scalability, right? So the reality is that, today Web3 space and the applications are incredibly small compared to traditional, Web2 even applications, right? Or databases or websites that
Really?
we use.
Still like still what percentage would you say? Are we still single digits in percentage? I think I want to give an idea of how small our applications really are compared to Web 2.
Yeah, I don't have the percentage. Definitely single digits, right? Not nowhere close to double digits. In terms of developers, right? Web3 developers, I think we counted in maybe 10 to 20,000, right?
Yeah.
Across different reports, and Web3 developers, you're looking at kind of a 20 million to 25 million, right? So that's sort of Web2 developers, 20 to 25 million. So that's the difference, right? And the same thing in the activity and the user base. I think we're still like 100x plus or minus from where we need to be just to reach kind of the traditional application scale. But given the fact that we're working with financial applications, right, that have some of them have monetary value or payments around it or different asset classes, like that scope can go way beyond what the Web two kind of could offer, and the scalability questions are still there, right? Where is it all going to operate? Is it going to operate on a single chain? Is it going to operate on multiple chains? And to me, kind of the computer science answer is that you cannot have a single network or single database to rule them all, right? Even for Web2 scale, we have multiple databases, we have multiple networks that are responsible for managing all these applications behind the scenes, that process hundreds of thousands of transactions per second, some of them. And so for the same level, even for the same level of scalability, you're going to have what's called like resource isolation, right? Where certain components need to function at different layers. They have to be isolated from each other. Now, how you achieve this, it's a very great question, and we can kind of talk about it. You can have horizontal scaling, you can have sharding, you can have app chains, you can have, subnets, your own chains and things like that. But this kind of horizontal scaling, kind of paradigm has to be there to continue growing the space, right? And and there the fundamental question comes in: how do you still keep it connected as you isolate it at the same time? So there's a little bit of a kind of balance you have to do.
What are some why is interoperability important beyond like, and we'll talk about like token transferring from one chain in a second in this but what are some use cases that you see beyond this?
Yeah. So very simply, right, like the goal of interoperability is to enable users to interact with any asset on any application on any chain with one click, right? Now, the traditional way of doing it is like token transfer. You move your tokens around and then you use the application, but that's a horrible UX, right?
Yeah.
We kind of turn the humans into what I call as manual routers, right? Like you have to say, I want to go from A to B, and oh, give me some gas or fill in some tank, right, to pay a transaction, to just use this application and let me go back and take my own roadshow back to my hometown. So it's just it's a fun activity, but it's not the activity that can
Yeah.
bring regular users into the space. So then you think about what is the better way to build, right? And the better way to build is to have actually applications that can compose with one another and talk to one another, that can execute user logic transparently behind the scenes, right? So as an example, you have a token on one chain and you want to take a loan against it in an asset on a different chain. You shouldn't have to move your token around and call three applications to do that and switch between wallets. You should be able to call a transaction, on your source chain and say, this is the loan I want to take. This is my asset. The asset maybe gets locked in the smart contract on that chain. then certain messages are exchanged to other applications or smart contracts on different chain that authorize this loan, maybe do some sanity checks, issue the payment, a new asset. It could come on the same chain or a different chain. But this is kind of all behind the scenes and all abstracted away from the movement of information, of movement assets is abstracted away, but you're still the owner of it, right? So you still have the key, you still can trace everything, you still can execute all these transactions. And so, you can build everything from decentralized exchanges that can operate across all the tokens across all the ecosystems, right? Something we've been doing with a lot of the dexes. You can build portable NFTs that you can use in different applications on chains. You can build these kind of cross-chain borrowing and lending applications, and then beyond that, I think there's an interesting property of actually composing different network properties with one another, right? So you have things like IPFS, which is a storage, which can now be actually accessed from a different chain, right? Not necessarily through a front end. So, and I think
That's
that
the
gets,
key. That's a killer application right there.
yeah,
Let's talk about that. For IPFS is probably the most would you say it's the most technically advanced implementation of like a decentralized file storage system,
yeah, for sure.
and being able to like access that across any blockchain and be able to like where if you're storing data through IPFS, it could be accessed from any chain and be not just accessed but also like called upon and
Mhm.
conversated with.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah,
so
exactly.
cool.
Right. Like you have this sort of, and that's back to your question: why would we need new chains? Because sometimes you need chains to solve specific use cases, right? So IPFS, and the Filecoin has been developed to solve the storage use case, right? But how do you keep that layer connected with other chains that maybe some of them have dexes, maybe some of them have, all these NFT applications in a unified way, and so you need connectivity for that. That's another use case for why things like IPFS could not exist in Ethereum, right? Like you could not put, so much storage and have cheap gas costs. You really needed like an optimized layer for that network.
Hey guys, we've been talking about BingX for the last few months. Super cool social copy trading platform where you can trade all sorts of cryptocurrencies, follow other traders, see their historical averages, how they've been doing, and follow or unfollow different people and all their trades 24/7. And what's cool about BingX, other than the free money, which I'll talk to in a second, that they're offering just to my listeners, but they also offer this super cool strategy that's like a spot grid. And they just launched like last week this, how do I explain it, a really, really cool strategy that now that I understand it, it's called an infinity grid. And it's designed to avoid us missing out on the trending market when the prices start to run high, especially when we're not trading and we're not sleeping. You should go check it out. All the links are below. And don't forget, they're also offering a 125 USDT new user reward. So if you're a new user, click the link below. Go to BingX and you get that free money. And on top of that, if you try out their social trading platform and the different copy trading, if you lose $30, they're actually going to repay you back those $30. All the information is below. Check them out. Thank you guys for sponsoring the show. And thanks for my listeners for helping our sponsors out. Thank you. Yeah, the faster, usually it's like if you have a network that goes really, really fast, you lose decentralization and you lose security, and it's harder to scale. Whereas if you have like one block every 10 minutes, kind of going back to Bitcoin, you're potentially a lot more secure, and you have a much more difficulty in creating blocks. So the more, if you create higher difficulty in blocks, because you have a larger decentralized proof of work network. And I'm looking at like, what if we launched a proof of work network that was for like land deeds around the world, title deeds of like of like property, and essentially this blockchain only updated once a day, and everyone was involved in the block reward, and you could mine this from a little Raspberry Pi because the difficulty is so high. What could be cool is if that blockchain, let's just say it wasn't, let's just say there was the technical ability to have uh, that blockchain be interoperable with something like Ethereum that's a lot faster. You could have like title deeds, but then you have it work with, a real estate blockchain type of situation. Now, all these blockchains could work together that do different things. You have the
Exactly.
insurance blockchain. You have all these different things.
Yeah. And you don't need a blockchain for every use case, right? I think it's for some use cases, like especially if you're still trying to find like what I call like as a product market fit, right? Like maybe you should go and build, in a shared environment where you have access to many users and the developer experience is very, very simple for you, right? You can build on Solana, Near, Algorand, whatever you like, find some product market fit, find some validation, right? But I think often we see products that do have product market fit, they need like a specialized consensus to scale for them, right? Or they need ability to customize consensus. We saw this, for instance, with DYDX, right, recently, where
Yeah.
they've been building around Ethereum and Starkware, and then like, okay, we really have to customize these rules for the consensus behind our chain, and so let's go and launch on Cosmos, right? And I think we're going to see that more and more as these use cases find product market fit. So I do think there's going to be kind of hubs of activity, but there's also going to be this app chains, rollups, whatever you want to call them around it.
Yeah, we've been talking about ZK rollups on past episodes. We've been talking about like why the benefits of joining the Cosmos ecosystem because of the IBC, it was the IBC, the inter blockchain connectivity, which I just realized I found out last week that the IBC was developed by the same person or people that developed Cosmos, but the IBC is actually something separate. I didn't realize that, which is really cool actually. But are there any blockchains that are launching or have launched that you've looked at that are like not interoperable that are like choosing, and you don't have to like come up with specific names, but I'm just wondering if there's anything out there that's like choosing to not be interoperable with other chains.
Um, yeah, so thankfully, haven't come up with that over the last at
Good.
least year because, frankly, I think, if you're launching a chain, then you're gonna, your value proposition to your developers is gonna be, we're gonna be isolated, right? But maybe we're secure and maybe we're fast, but you're gonna live in our own world. I don't think it's a very strong value proposition to developers these days. Like when they choose an ecosystem, right, they have to know that they can rely on it. Relying on it meaning that there's speed, there's gas efficiency, and there's kind of connectivity and liquidity that they can tap into it. So it is definitely one of the requirements for all these layer ones going forward, I think.
So if I'm going back to like we talked about CFI, if I'm on CFI and I have like USDC on Ethereum and I want to change it over to like uh USDT on Polygon or USDT on Binance chain. You traditionally would have to go to like these big CFI companies, deposit your money, and essentially they have like pools of all these other tokens, and they can transfer you and they charge you a fee. And that's traditionally what everyone goes there to do. But one of the products that you're developing, and it's really cool here, if you go to the satellite.money and it's satellite powered by Axelar, it looks like a CFI user interface. It's beautiful. It looks good. It seems intuitive, very easy to use and understand. My grandma can use it. She uses crypto. It's not hard. Um, but what is going on here that's different than what goes on in CFI?
Yeah, so the basic point is that the Axel network connects all these different blockchain ecosystems and it can send messages across them, right? And one type of message is a token transfer message, right? So for instance, if you have USDC on one chain and you want to receive a USDC on another chain, how can you do this without having to go through a centralized kind of a front end? And so Axel network and its message passing layer can enable you to do that, right? And so the satellite is an example of an application that was built on top of the network, and there's like many others that have been built that allows you to go and use this message passing layer and token transfer layer to move your assets around, right? And in additionally, we have integrations with different dexes, like so, for instance, Osmosis, right, which is a Cosmos decentralized exchange, connects through the network API that allows you to directly like deposit things like your USDC from Ethereum, even from a centralized exchange, with one click by sending it to the special address and like appearing it on Osmosis, then trading it for other coins of other chains like ETH or anything from Polkadot ecosystem, or
Yeah.
everything else has been interconnected. And that's it, right? And like you're still the owner of all these assets in the process, right? Because you are simply sending messages from one chain to another, and the protocol allows you to facilitate this information exchange in some sense between these blockchains. In the simple use cases, of course, like liquidity transfer that many applications are instantiating.
How's it like right now running a company in this bear market?
It's entertaining. How about
Yeah.
this, right?
Would you say
you know,
entertaining?
it's it's one of those things where you have to keep your hands very cool, right? And stay calm, I think, and continue building, right? I think as we say to our partners and to the team, always, like we just have to build better infrastructure to
Yeah.
enable the types of use cases, like I said, like FTX, like Binance, being built on top of open decentralized systems, so we don't have issues like that, right? And like I said, like 2 years, even today, I think it would be hard to build the whole, FTX infrastructure on a decentralized platform. So we have to do better. The chains have to do better. Interoperability has to do better. But I think that's an important problem that we have to solve. And then we'll be able to take all those use cases. We'll be able to power them in an open, transparent and permissionless way. So I think just important in these times to stay focused to what you're really trying to do here, right? For the long term, continue building, really understanding what the
Yeah.
issues are, and staying focused as a team.
How do you know how do you know what your customers want? How do we know? How do we know what the future crypto users will want to grow our industry? How do we build products of the future? And I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, it's hard to like sometimes see the forest through the trees, if you will, and to like continue on your roadmap, especially if it's a long-term one, right?
So I think, how do I know? It's sort of combination of reactive feedback from the teams that are building, right, and understanding some of the problems, but also frankly sometimes trying to understand where the industry needs to go, right? I think some of us are the ones that are building the protocols. We have to understand this is how the ideal experience should look like, right? And then kind of go back and say, okay, here are the milestones to get there. Here are the building blocks to get there, right? You need fast consensus. You need, interoperability. You need, security. You need interaction across these chains, and then breaking down and like executing on some of those components. So, yeah, I mean, I think strong builders in the space kind of have a gut feeling, right, for some of these components are, and I think it always gets augmented with the user feedback and the user demand, as of today, and kind of short term goals, and you're trying to craft a roadmap, right, to
Yeah.
to kind of align those two things.
I like building when there's extreme fear like this, like extreme fear to a point where I haven't really built anything in a few years and it makes me want to get back into it. What what would you like to see built? I don't want to get back into I don't want to develop another new blockchain or protocol or try to like there's some brilliant brains like yourself out there that are on the forefront of doing that. But what else would you like to see built? What support type of mechanisms would you like to see people build applications that interface with customers more instead of you having to deal with it? And I guess it's not really a question that it's more of like a theoretical question to our hypothetical question.
I mean, so one thing that I've been kind of spending a little bit of time thinking through is just like the messaging layer, right, across different chains. So like the basic fundamental problem that I think we have is that we have Web3 systems that have kind of contracts with one another, but then the way all the customers of all these applications are reached and communicate is through Twitter, right? Which is like its own ecosystem, its own
Yeah,
world. And like, a protocol has an upgrade. What do you do? Oh, you should put an announcement on Twitter, right? And like you want to tell something to your customers. What do you do? Oh, you got to go put an
put it on
announcement on Twitter.
Twitter.
And I want to talk to another user in the space. What do I do? Oh, I have to go and like, DM the user. So yeah, one of the things that I think I started to kind of just brainstorm a little bit with a couple, different folks is like, what does the messaging need to look like as a building block, right, across all these environments that is composable with all the other rails that we're building, that's composable with things like token transfers, right? But it's composable with things like
Yeah.
contract calls where people can talk to one another directly. You can have applications that can notify its users, or users send messages to the applications, include like payment details and things like that. So and making that very, very simple to use as a building block, something I would like to see being built.
That could be that's the layer that's missing. We have to go to social networks. Even like the if you're holding on to an NFT or a token, how cool would it be as if like the creator of that had a way to communicate with you as like a loyal fan or something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would love to see something like that be built at the same time. What's on the roadmap for you guys though?
Yeah, no, for us, quite a few things. So definitely, have a very deep roadmap on the chain integrations, right? So, 27 are now, but like the demand for integrations across chains keeps on growing. So we're, recently announced like partnerships with like Sui, right, blockchain, and we're working on integration with Aptos and kind of many other chains. So that's one. And second of all, kind of going back and understanding what are these building blocks, or what are the primitives that are needed for the ecosystem to solve. So we announced partnership with Circle for trying to compose
Oh, cool.
USDC with kind of general message passing, to use that as a building block, and we'll call it like composable USDC. So you can use that as a liquidity routing asset across different blockchains. And so things like that is kind of a
What do you
understanding what the
mean? Let's explain to me like what do you mean? That's so cool. So like
yeah.
how I actually hold and spend money could change.
So I think how DeFi applications are instantiated could change, right? So kind of a basic problem, like you want to exchange, let's say, AvaX for ETH, right? Kind of how can you do this today in a you can go to a centralized exchange. Okay, you take all the risk there. How can you do it with one click from Avalanche blockchain, right? And so the basic idea is that you can use things like stable coins as the routing assets across them, right? So you could swap
Oh,
your AvaX for USDC. You can route, USDC to another application on Ethereum chain, and then swap that USDC for Ether, right? And doing all of that in one click, in transparent and a secure way, is something that we're working on with Circle and USDC integration, where you can make one call from an application, right, that says I want to swap X for Y, and using the USDC as a routing asset to potentially facilitate that swap if needed.
I wanted to give a super good congratulations to our amazing sponsor, AngelBlock, on the launch of the AngelBlock protocol. Congratulations, guys. I know it's a long time coming. It's hard work, especially building in a bear market. And we've been talking about AngelBlock for a while. But for those who don't know, if you're a crypto investor, the AngelBlock protocol allows for non custodial and on chain fundraising, transparent vesting, and automated token distribution. You could invest in startups, DAOs, protocols, multiple chains, agnostics, all these different things, but with increased security, post-raise governance, which for me is huge, milestones for funding, regulatory compliance, on-chain transparency. Now, on the other side, if you're a startup, you want to be on the other side of that, because they can help you build out all of your technologies, from your NFTs to your tokens. They have a huge community that everyone loves to be a part of. Receive advisory and mentoring, legal, strategic, technical, operation support, access to cap table management. I mean, this is the Web3 version of how fundraising and investing will take place. AngelBlock Protocol, thank you guys for supporting my show, and I hope you guys enjoy. To use USDC as an example, if I'm holding USDC right now on one blockchain on Ethereum, and someone else is holding USDC on Tron, for example, or I don't know if Tron, can you incorporate with Tron? Is that an EVM chain?
We don't support it yet, so I'm
Okay,
not
so
quite
let's
sure.
not
But
use that.
let's say
Let's just say on
Polygon, or
Polygon,
yeah.
right? You're saying that USDC on a has their own, almost like it's like Circle maintains the USDC protocol, that they have a way that all USDC can talk to each other. It doesn't matter what chain they're on.
That's right. Yeah. So Circa was kind of building their bridge, right, that
That's
allows
so
you
cool.
to, have USDC that's sort of minted and burned across these different chains, and so you can send it one another. And then the question that we're helping them answer is that how do you use that and how do you build applications around that, right? So by composing it with Axelar general message passing layer, and so you'll be able to have kind of a chain agnostic representation of USDC, right, and a chain agnostic representation to interact with all of these different ecosystem applications with your USDC in one click.
Dude, are we gonna have chain agnostic stablecoins?
We're going to have chain
Oh,
agnostic
what?
stablecoins.
That's mind blowing right now. I can't even like fathom how that would work, how that would be represented in a wallet. But that's next level. That's really next level stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
I actually want to like title the show Chain Agnostic Stablecoins. And we're gonna
Nice.
use that part in the beginning of the show or whatever. But that's like a future product that I could totally see having epic application in the real world. Because like you said, oh man, imagine I mean the opportunities and the of what you can do just on a financial just forget financials, but just other types of products that can exist on chain. Uh it's really cool. I want to kind of like wrap the show up in bringing it back to like you as a person a little bit, like we did in the beginning. A lot of my listeners on the show are always wondering like what the next step is, how to get started, how to like jump into the industry. You actually started at Algorand and you worked there and you ran things there for a while. Is it true that you learned a lot of lessons and experience that without that you wouldn't have been able to start your company now?
Yeah, definitely a lot of learnings, from it. I think, to me, kind of what makes me, excited and what I like doing in general is just kind of start doing things, right? Whether or not it's, at Algorand or previously, various, initiatives that I did, like start coding, right? Like I think like there are 100 excuses you can do, right? But like I think just starting to do something and then learning from it to me is always kind of the best way. If you want to start a project, you don't need to have that much, right? You can start on the evenings or weekends and kind of start coding, start talking to the customers, kind of getting feedback from it. And of course working with other companies helps. Seeing how other people kind of think helps along the way. But at least my style is just start doing, right? I think
Here's a
that's
question I actually have for you that's personal. If I'm not a developer myself, where's a good place for me to team up with a good because you can't just go to like Fiverr or Upwork and like
right.
type in what you want built. You need to like engage with someone and architect something out first and then build it. Where could someone like me go to do that?
So I think a great place actually to start is like various like hackathons or meetups around different ecosystems that have been built, right? So at Axelar we host constantly either online like hackathons or in-person meetups where both developers and non-developers kind of come together and talk about their problems, right? So I think to me even if you're not a developer, there's a lot of value you can add. You still have to be sort of analytical, right? And you have to be thoughtful about it. So if you're solving a problem, how do you kind of quantify this problem? How do you think about it? Like what does the product could look like, even if you don't write any code? You do have to think through those things. But I think going to a hackathon, going to a meetup. We're actually going to be organizing a conference in February. It's called Interop Summit in Miami, actually. So that will be a great place to come in as well, because we'll have builders and non-builders from all over the ecosystem kind of talk about how to get started and how to build.
You're a professor at the University of Waterloo. Is it the same University of Waterloo that Vitalik studied at, the creator of Ethereum?
It's the same university. That's right.
Does the school like talk about that? Are they like proud of that at all?
They definitely talk. I mean, I think Vitalik like dropped out. I don't know,
Oh
after a couple of semesters. So he didn't get into the end school. But
Doesn't
I'm sure
matter.
at this point he can get an honorary degree or something if he really wishes.
He tried. That's yeah, right. He tried. And that's what's it like? Do you enjoy doing that?
I've been on Lyft for a bit, right, just to focus in on the companies. But I think kind of to your point, I think one of the I think key features of Waterloo is kind of their IP policy, right, and like encouraging entrepreneurship. And I think it's actually the only place in North America that allows like the owners of a creation to fully own the IP and do whatever the heck they want with it, right? There's nothing, no constraints
Interesting.
from a university or dependencies.
Yeah, we've seen that in the past, like where someone started a company in their like college dorm room and then the university tried to take the equity from that or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it happened, over and over, right? I think like Starkware had some issues around it, but yeah. So I think University of Waterloo is just incredible in that perspective, and I think that that resulted in a number of companies along
All
the way.
right. I appreciate the time today. You taught me a lot about well, first, chain agnostic stablecoins, mind-blowing stuff, but the importance of scaling horizontally, interoperability. Uh, we talked about some really good subjects today. So Sergey, thank you, and I'm really excited um, to see what you're going to be up to in the next 6 months to a year. If my listeners want to like jump into your hackathons, your communities, they like what you're doing, they like the vibe. Where can they go?
I mean, I think a great place to start is just go to our website, axel.network. From there, you can find links to like Discord, to our Twitter, right? It's at Axelar Core. We constantly post like video upgrades, tutorials, that are linked through it. And yeah, like check out the Interop Summit that will be happening at the end of February in Miami, like I said. And we're probably going to have like various hackathons, lead into it or around it.
Would you say it's the Interop Summit in Miami?
Yeah, interopsummit.com. So you can
Ooh,
go
I
to
want to
the
go
to the
to
website.
this. This looks cool. Well, I'll have the links to that, and I appreciate you taking the time and coming on Untold Stories today. And I'll talk to you later.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me.